All right, welcome in. You're listening to Knowledge is Power. Tonight's Thursday night. I'm Richard Finley. I'm your host, and I'm in with the great Curtis Bell.
Hey,
Curtis,
how's everything?
We just made a rapid dash through rush hour traffic, and with that note in mind, I would like to remind our regular listeners, those of you who are out there in traffic, to put the cell phone down, keep both hands on the wheel, both eyes on the road, and you are allowed to turn the radio up, of course, but do all those things necessary to ensure that you arrive home safely to those who are eagerly anticipating your arrival. For the rest of you, those of you who are already home and preparing to sit down for the evening meal and participate in your Thursday evening ritual of listening to what we like to call grown folks conversation on WATV, Knowledge is Power. All right, Curtis, it has been one heck of a week, and we've got an awful lot we want to talk about. For those of you who are aware or may not be aware, there is a town hall meeting at the Birmingham Civil Rights Institute going on now, where those members of the general public who are concerned about the status of indigent care, who are concerned about the ongoing operation of Cooper Green Hospital, are in attendance. For those of you who could not make it, I would certainly hope that your not being there will not diminish your interest in the survival of Cooper Green Hospital. We are under attack, and we are issuing a call to arms for all concerned citizens. And we know a lot of you are well employed and well insured, but I want you to look around at some of your neighbors, and as you travel through the city going to and fro to your jobs, I want you to know that but for the grace of God, you could be on the indigent care rolls. You could be the one in need of health care that presently you can't afford. So, don't sleep this one. Don't sit on the sidelines. It is imperative that all of you make yourselves as knowledgeable as you can about the situation involving the hospital and the Indigent Care Fund, and that you make sure that all elected officials know that you know the value of Cooper Green Hospital, and that you do not want that safety net removed. You do not want to see these politicians take monies that were especially established by the legislature to provide quality health care for those who temporarily find themselves without an insurance policy of their own. You do not want to see these Johnny-come-lately politicians ravage that fund and take it to use for purposes certainly not of your benefit. We've seen that happen with the nursing home, and we certainly don't want to see that happen with Cooper Green Mercy Hospital. So maybe next week we'll have a report on exactly what went on at the meeting, but we would encourage all of you to contact your county commissioner. Well, don't contact your county commissioner, because your county commissioner is probably in support of the hospital. Contact the remaining 3 or 4 commissioners who, for some reason, feel that it is necessary to attack those of you who are least able to defend yourselves. It was my plan and I was trying to follow through on that plan. To talk about Jefferson County in a broader sense or in total, but talk about it specifically as it relates to the suit that was filed by the interveners or the sewer customers, and I guess the names that you recognize, the principal names would be, Roderick Royal and John Rogers and Mary Moore, your elected representatives, who have filed a claim in bankruptcy court requesting that the creditors relinquish $1.6 billion of ill-gotten gain so that the county might be able to continue to function and operate the sewer system, absent any additional burdens on the sewer rate customers. I want to give you, and let me do this. I want to back up and give you a brief history of this situation, and I want to do that because I'd also like to announce that we've said on this program time and time again that we do stream live over the worldwide net, but through the efforts of some dedicated listeners, we're also being rebroadcast and made available for listeners again around the world via YouTube and Facebook and Twitter and all of those things. Jefferson County is such a watershed issue. It is of concern to people all over the world what is going on here in Jefferson County. We have never seen such a major collapse of integrity and morality and fiscal responsibility as we have witnessed here in Jefferson County and the world. All of the financial reporters all over the globe are focused on Jefferson County and how this issue is resolved. So it's going to be imperative that you as ratepayers and you as citizens of Jefferson County be engaged and involved and make sure that your voice is heard. You have got to continuously apply pressure to these elected officials who apparently have no concept of their fiduciary responsibility to the citizens to keep them informed and to keep them engaged in this process of democracy if it is truly going to work. So as I give you the brief background and history, I want you to keep in mind, and I hope that it's coming across on these airways, the sense of urgency that I feel about the need for all citizens, adolescent, adult, whatever your status may be, to be involved in this ongoing process and to recognize that democracy is a participatory sport and you have to play the game. You have to be involved. You cannot let any single group of individuals determine your future without your input. Okay, having said that, we are the focal point of the financial world because back in the late 90s, well, probably prior to that, several environmental groups started sounding alarm bells and raising concerns about the amount of seepage from the sewer system that was finding its way into our groundwater tables and into our rivers, and thereby contaminating our drinking water. Around approximately 1999, a ruling was issued by the Environmental Protection Agency and the federal government that Jefferson County had to fix the sewer problems had to bring the water quality standards within Jefferson County up to an acceptable level to meet government muster and certainly to meet the requirements of its customers. So the Jefferson County Commission set out to borrow money to repair the sewer system so as to protect the quality of our drinking water. Within that first round of monies that were borrowed, there was a feeding frenzy among contractors to get an opportunity to do that work. There were pumping stations that needed to be built. There were pipes that needed to be replaced. There was all kind of, not very technical work, but intense work, labor-intense work that needed to be done. And the contractors, in their zeal to secure these contracts, wanted or felt the need to violate the fair competition process, and a few of them decided that it might be better just to go ahead and bribe some county officials to get the work rather than to bid and compete in a fair process. Well, the story is known to us all now that they did in fact bribe several elected officials and several county employees to land those contracts. What would be significant to our audience is that they were also successful in barring or stopping any participation by black or so-called minority contractors in this process. So they wanted the entire pie. Never mind that black customers made up the majority of customers on the sewer system. The white contractors, who for most, and I don't doubt that any of them lived in the Birmingham area or in any of the areas where the concentration of sewer customers existed then and exists now. But anyway, they bribed the county commissioners, they bribed county engineers and anybody who had anything to do with the sewer system. They barred, they used the force of law to restrict participation by any of Jefferson County's black citizens in doing the actual work to repair and maintain the sewer system. That was the first round of borrowing. After that was done, for some reason unknown to this announcer, the county went back and borrowed an additional $1 billion. The first request was for $1 billion. The second request was for $1 billion. And at this point, they were scrambling, trying to find ways to spend $1 billion. But in the process, the country went into a recession, and revenues to businesses and subsequently to governments all began to drop. So at that point, Jefferson County began to use what monies they had remaining that they had borrowed to service their total debt. And it was when they realized that they were using borrowed money to pay the interest on the money that they had borrowed that the slick bankers from New York showed up and began to show them how they might be able to reduce their payments and, quote, save the citizens some money. That set off a series of illegal, inappropriate, and just downright wrong financial transactions that led us to where we are today. You who keep up with these things are aware that J.P. Morgan, who is the principal creditor involved in the Jefferson County situation, just had to write off a loss of $2 billion on their European investments that were also tied up in swaps and derivatives. And swaps and derivatives are what brought Jefferson County to ruin. These guys were able to convince our commissioners, and bless his heart, Larry Langford at the time was the president of the commission, who followed the advice and recommendation of the New York bankers and several financial advisors and security dealers here in Alabama, as well as the advice of a team of very substantial lawyers representing very substantial law firms, who all gave Commissioner Langford the nod to say, okay, these are fine, they meet all the legal tests, and they meet all of the financial tests, so go ahead and sign them. And he did that over 22 times, generating hundreds of millions of dollars in legal fees and other fees and costs associated with these financial transactions. So at some point in the process, the lawyers lost focus on their fiduciary responsibility to advise their clients of the legality of what they were doing, but also of the morality of what they were doing. And so at that point, right and wrong didn't matter. It was just getting paid, and everybody wanted to get paid, and everybody got paid, but the people who are now stuck with the bill, the ratepayers, are the ones who are suffering in this situation. And anybody who is black, who is professional, who was barred by the establishment at the time from participating for no other reason other than you were black. They did not want you involved in this feeding frenzy of getting what I consider to be institutional wealth. You know, they stole enough money so that their grandchildren's children won't have to work. But they put the bill upon the ratepayers, the customers, and the non-commercial customers who are eligible for the system. Only about 40% of those people are on the system in Jefferson County. And of that 40%, 80% are at or below poverty. So you take all of these people who are living off of their retirements, living off Social Security, who are unemployed or sub-employed or minimally employed, and the burden of repaying $3 to $4 billion is on you. I mean, you already don't make any money, and these extremely wealthy financial institutions, advisors, and lawyers have basically just held you up. You've been robbed. Your children have been robbed. Your children's children have been robbed. Your children's children's children have been robbed, because it will take multiple generations to pay off this kind of debt. It is a crime. I don't think there's anything in history that rivals this, other than the point at which the Union soldiers left the South and the Ku Klux Klan took control then to take back all of the land and progress and businesses that the newly freed slaves had developed for themselves in the short time between the end of the war and during the Reconstruction period. You know, the slaves made tremendous progress in that period of time, and no sooner than they were able to maneuver the Union troops out of the South, the local whites put on their hoods and rode through the black community, burning and pillaging and hanging and killing and threatening, until they took all of the gains that the newly freed slaves have made. And what is happening here in Jefferson County is that's the only equivalent that I can come up with in history. And, so you're free to challenge that if you come up with something that's greater. But the magnitude of what has gone on here in Jefferson County is simply beyond the pale of reality. And it is going to be our responsibility to snatch it back into some reality, to impose some level of consciousness and responsibility upon those who presently have political power in Jefferson County, so that they understand that hell no, we're not going to take it. We're not going to sit back and allow you to rob the future of our grandchildren's children. All right, we're approaching the break. When I come back, I want to talk further about the Jefferson County situation, and I want to bring into focus what is happening tonight at that town hall meeting concerning Cooper Green, and how these dastardly deed doers would want to take the monies set aside as a safety net to provide some sort of health care for those of you who are underemployed, unemployed, and simply down on your luck. They want to take that money, rather than tax the wealthy in Vestavia Hills and Mountain Brook and Hoover. They want to take the money that's set aside to operate the hospital, to provide emergency care for you. They want to take that to run the county. These people have no moral center. They have no consciousness. So again, you are under attack. There is no way you can sleep through this period. There's no way you can ignore what's going on. If you don't care about yourself, think about your children and your children's children's children, and realize that this has to be dealt with now. It has to be stopped. You're listening to Knowledge is Power. We'll take a break, and we'll be right back. All right, welcome back. The Fabulous Temptations. It's a ball of confusion, Jefferson County. You're listening to Knowledge is Power. Always know that Knowledge is Power is brought to you by the Committee to Develop Birmingham. The committee meets on the third Saturday of every month from 9 until 11 at the 5 Points West Library, located here in beautiful downtown 5 Points West. Before we went to the break, we were talking about this fiasco, this mess, this cesspool of lies and corruption that is Jefferson County and Jefferson County government. It is imperative for you, my listening audience, to realize that you are never going to be respected and treated as men and women of character and substance until you start acting like men and women of character and substance. This environment that has been created, this environment of racial subrogation, where you find yourselves as black men and women constantly under attack for any position of power and responsibility that you hold. The media, the dominant media in Birmingham, constantly places you in ridicule and under attack. They attack your school board. They attack your city council. They attack your mayor. They attack your water board. They attack anything that you have influence and control. And rest assured that this racial consideration plays a part not only in all of their endeavors, but in all of their thoughts. For those people attending the town hall meeting concerning Cooper Green Mercy Hospital, know that the fact that the CEO and the chief financial officer are black plays a major role in the minds of the majority of the Jefferson County Commission as part of the problem there. I can assure you that if these individuals were white, that there would not be this urgent rush to shut it down, to scrutinize every dime, every penny, to go through the operations, to constantly harass and harangue the employees over there, to create an environment where professional caregivers find it almost impossible to work because their jobs and their livelihoods are being threatened daily and constantly by these public officials who see it as their mission to destroy Cooper Green Mercy Hospital. And as soon as they get the votes to unearmark indigent care for Jefferson County, you personally, you individually should feel threatened. You should feel under attack. Now, while we still have some semblance of a democratic operation within Jefferson County government, you better raise your voice. You better get in these jokers' face and let them know that you are aware of what they're trying to do, that you will not tolerate what they're trying to impose upon the hard-working, good citizens of this county. Because if you do not, they will take your silence as acceptance. So you can't be silent. If you're not at that town hall meeting, you ought to be on your way. Keep your radio on, but be on your way. So that these elected individuals begin to understand who and what they're dealing with as they sit back and make these grandiose decisions about we're going to cut this out and we're going to stop this and we're going to do this without conferring with you. They were scurrying around all day trying to figure out, well, who called the town hall meeting and what they're going to say and what we're going to do, because they're afraid that you are listening to this program and that you are being informed and that now you are aware of the threat that these individuals pose to your freedoms and your liberty within this county of Jefferson. I want to talk briefly about the situation at the school board. I've been following this situation, and to see these officials from the state of Alabama come to town and say, you know, we're from the government and we're here to fix it. When Alabama's at the bottom in education of all the states in the union, somebody from Montgomery has the audacity to ride into Birmingham and say, they're going to fix it. Well, don't get me wrong. I have no problem with criticism of the school board. God knows they could use a lot of criticism, especially from those of you who are parents of kids in the school and those of us who reside within the city of Birmingham. All public officials are due an appropriate amount of criticism. That's what we do as citizens, is that we constantly monitor and criticize our government. But for these jokers to come up out of Montgomery and threaten to take over the process, no, you don't do that. You can come into the board respectfully and express your concerns. You can come into the board respectfully and make suggestions and recommendations on things that you have seen work elsewhere that they might want to try, as well as all PTA and PTO members, should be doing the same thing. But don't come in here and say you're going to take over the system. And do what with it? What is your qualification? Alabama is 49th or 50th in educational success or procedure or whatever in the nation. And you're going to come in and as if you know what the devil you're doing and take over. I have no doubt that the Birmingham School Board, by virtue of its nature, it's an elected school board. So you don't have to have any background in education. You don't have to have any qualification. You just get elected. But that's the system as it is. They were duly elected by the people, and they should be allowed to carry out their fiduciary responsibilities. Now, if the results of their actions are unpleasing to the citizens, then the citizens should replace them. I think, personally, they should replace the system of electing board members, but that's a decision for the citizens to make. But once the people are there, they were chosen by the citizens, and good or bad, they have to make those decisions and be responsible to the people who elected them. It is not your duty to come in out of Montgomery and do anything other than advise and make recommendations. You can't come in here like Gestapos and decide that, again, you want to just take it over. We're in Alabama. We have a history. You have a history, state education officials. And your history says that when it comes to people of a different background, skin color, or ethnicity than you, then you tend to lose perspective. You're not rational any longer. You operate on antiquated assumptions, and you do not take the time to engage those individuals who appear to be different from you to find the merit of their thoughts and their thought processes. So, my 2 cents worth for the school board, state of Alabama, step back, get out of the way, allow the parents, the citizens of Birmingham to apply whatever pressures necessary to the members of the school board to correct their budget matters and to deliver to us a well-educated young person prepared to contribute to the well-being of our society. Now, that is a concern to all of us. We've got problems in our community, and we have to accept responsibility for those. But it is not up to you to come in like a group of Gestapo and take over and deride and degrade the people that the people have put in place. And having said that, the people now need to find a way to coalesce behind the superintendent and the board so that we can, in fact, assist them in delivering to us young people who are capable of contributing in a positive way to the continued progress of life and society here within the county of Jefferson, the city of Birmingham, because that's something that's imperative to all of us. We know that we have problems in our community, but we're not going to resolve those problems unless we can stand shoulder to shoulder with the individuals that we have put in place, not allow them to waver, not allow them to back up, but to assist them in moving forward and delivering to us responsible young people who are now prepared, trained, and capable of progressing life within our community. We don't need our school systems turning out inmates for the local jail. We don't need our school systems producing 40-50% dropout, but that is not totally on the school system. That is on the community. That means that all of our organizations should join in, the churches, the fraternities, the social clubs, the mystic organizations. Everybody should join in standing shoulder to shoulder with the members of the school board throughout our community to instill in our young people the value of a quality education and instill in them and get them to understand the role that they play in the future of society. Because certainly as we baby boomers age, these young people need to be employable, they need to be contributors to society, and we need to be about creating an entrepreneurial base, an entrepreneurial community. And for those of you who don't understand entrepreneurial, a business base and a business community that can employ our own people, that can allow them, as they become better educated, to come in and take these businesses from the sole proprietor to the corporate level and on into major public corporations that can employ thousands of people. We can do it with the proper mindset. So, with all of the things that are going on here within Jefferson County, with the school board, with the city, with the county, with the bankruptcy, with the hospital, with the sewer, the bulk ultimately stops with each one of us. So it is imperative that you, no, don't look around, I'm talking to you, it is imperative that you accept your role and your responsibility. We have said on this program any number of times that we at the Committee to Develop Birmingham are not in the business of establishing any kind of leadership hierarchy. We're not seeking public office. We see our mission as one of providing you with information on the events of the day from your perspective, to give you the information and the insight to allow you to make better informed decisions about your personal well-being. You see, we have too long followed leaders. We have sat back and anointed or appointed someone to be the leader, thereby making that individual a target for all kinds of destructive efforts. So don't do that to anybody else. What you must do, as is stated in the Bible, in all of your getting, you must first get an understanding. Understand who you are, what your role is, what the responsibilities are that are assigned to your role, and then carry those things out. Once each of you understands the role of a man or a woman in the promulgation of a prosperous society, of a safe community, of a profitable enterprise. Once you understand your role as mature adult people, then you don't require leadership, because now you see clearly. You understand what it is that needs to be done, and you will do it. And when you show up at the PTA meeting or the PTO meeting, and there are 300 or 400 other parents there who all now understand what is required of adults within a free society, then things begin to happen. So it's not required that you select, elect, appoint someone to be your leader. You are responsible for your life and the life of those under your charge. Not the mayor, not the governor, not the city council person. You are responsible for that. So if we as a group would seek to understand what our role is as men and women within a society, and then act to carry out or to play out our roles within society, then I can assure you that you will see a minimizing of the negative that we are now battling within our community. We're coming up on the break. When we come back, we'll open up the phone lines. I want to remind you that we are screaming on the World Wide Web. Is it screaming or streaming? We're on YouTube, we're on Twitter, we're on Facebook, we're all over the place. So you be aware when you call in that you are representing your community. Make sure that your thoughts are coherent. Keep your question or your comment to 2 minutes, because we have a lot of callers. who complain constantly that they can't get in because callers have agendas. So keep it to 2 minutes. I'm going to ask Curtis to monitor the time, and we're going to have to cut you off. We'll respond to any questions that you ask. Be sure of that. But when we come back, the number is 741-9288, 741 WATV. You're listening to Knowledge is Power. Tonight's Thursday night. I'm Richard Finley. I'm your host, and we'll be back. Okay, welcome back. You're listening to Knowledge is Power. Tonight's Thursday night. I'm Richard Finley. I'm your host. I'm in with the great Curtis Bell.
You here?
As we approach the second hour, I want to, and this had slipped my mind earlier, to remind those of you who are not aware that the Jefferson County Commission will be holding a public hearing on Tuesday at 4 o'clock at the Medical Forum building down at the Birmingham Jefferson Civic Center. And they're going to be discussing rate increases. And I understand that they're going to bring in some experts to show you how really it's not that bad. And you can pay some more. I mean, your power bill is going up, your gas bill is going up, your water bill is going up, the cost of your insurance is going up, the cost of your medical care is going up. So, I mean, what does it matter? You know, you pay another $5-10 a month on your sewer bill, or you can handle that. And they're going to convince you that you really should pay more. And you know, and I say that sarcastically because I had an opportunity to have a conversation with a representative of one of the creditors that I won't name. But that was the way this representative of one of the creditors in bankruptcy put it to me. Well, everything goes up. I mean, just why can't they just pay more? And you know, I guess that's easy to say when you're not the one that's paying more. But my follow-up conversation to this representative of the creditors is that, you know, what's your objective here? Is your objective to increase revenue so that more money would be available to pay for the illegal, ill-gotten debt? Or is it simply to increase the burden on the working poor here in Jefferson County? So he says, well, you know, we want to increase revenue. So I reminded him again that only 40% of the eligible residential customers for the Jefferson County sewer system are actually on the system. Of that 40%, 80% subsist at or below poverty. So logic would tell you that if you increase the rate on people who don't have anything, you're simply going to get less. I think they call it the Laffer curve in economics. But these fellows in New York are smart. They know that that customer base, you know, those of you who own the sewer system, cannot afford to pay off $3 billion worth of debt plus interest. You couldn't pay it off if it was zero interest, but then they add an interest onto it as well. So they're fundamentally enslaving the next 5 or 6 generations in your family to pay for this debt that you saw no benefit from. You know, your property lost value, your income was eaten away. Your government failed you completely. You got no benefit at all from what they did with the sewer system. Those of you who are entrepreneurs and contractors or lawyers or accountants or insurance representative, all of you who tried to get some of that business that the county was spending on this $2 billion public works project, if you were black, you got nothing, or as close to it as they could get. But it is our community who is asked to share or to consume the lion's share of this debt, while all of those white professionals, lawyers and financial advisors and accountants and insurance brokers and providers and whatever, walked away with generational wealth at the expense of your grandchildren's great-grandchildren. So you be down there at 4 o'clock Tuesday to let the county commission know that your response is hell no. If they want additional revenue, then they've got to go to new sources to get it. When we opened this program, we talked about the EPA being concerned about the sewer system's malfunctions because of the impact it would have on our drinking water. So it would appear to me that if revenue is what they're after, then everybody in Jefferson County enjoys the benefit of clean, quality drinking water. So if you decide to add another $2 or $3 a month onto the water bill to cover the cost of doing this, then that would make more sense. That would give you a more solid stream of revenue than trying to get blood out of this rock that you keep beating in our community. And beyond that, the suit that was filed the other day on behalf of the interveners, the royal interveners, if you will, although Mr. Andrew Bennett down in Bessemer did all of the legwork and organized this, and I want to give him his propers. Mr. Bennett, we thank you for your community concern and your effort in getting this thing done. But this intervention is calling upon the courts to require that J.P. Morgan and the other creditors eat, write off, forfeit $1.6 billion of profits that were made off of this debacle. And I want you to understand that, they have been making money since 1999. The sewer system has been generating $160 to $180 million a year, and the creditors have been collecting between 110 and 120 million a year of that money since 99. So what is this, 12? They have had 12 years of $100+ million a year, which constitutes somewhere around $1.3 billion that they've already taken from your children's future and from your happiness and your retirement. They've already taken that. So, the question that you should be asking is why the Jefferson County Commission does not file some sort of legal document supporting the interveners. Commissioner Carrington was quoted as saying, well, he didn't think that that intervention would go very far. Hell, he ought to be championing it. He ought to be rallying everybody around this petition to the court to have the creditors take responsibility for $1.6 billion of this ill-gotten gain and write it off. If the rest of the Jefferson County Commission would get behind that, if all of these lawyers that they're paying in excess of $2 million a month to do nothing in the bankruptcy court, if they all got behind the interveners and supported their request that the creditors write off $1.6 billion of this proposed debt, then we're back at the Bowman plan. We're back at $1.5 billion. We've already demonstrated that with the existing revenue, we can service $1.5 billion, and if we institute the clean water fee, not only can we service the $1.5 billion, we can reduce the cost to the ratepayers. Why are these people not working in your interest? Why don't these commissioners that you elected work to help you out, to reduce this debt so that you can live, so that you can reinvest in the community? Ask yourself, why these commissioners are not jumping on board with the royal intervention and demanding that the court make these creditors write off $1.6 billion of this ill-gotten debt. We've already paid them $1.3 billion plus interest. We're still paying them over $5 or $6, $7 million a month, even in bankruptcy. Why is it that the majority of your county commission will not join in with the interveners? They ought to be excited that the interveners file this action in the bankruptcy court. They ought to throw all the weight of the county behind the interveners and demand that this be done. But they're silent. You know, I'd have to question whether they represent me. Are they on our side? Are they trying to help us out? Who are they trying to protect in this situation? That they just dismiss this suit filed by elected representatives. You know, Roderick Raw is president of the city council. John Rogers is the head of the Jefferson County delegation, or the second head of the Jefferson County delegation in Montgomery. Representative Mary Moore is a long-standing representative and citizen and member of the committee to develop Birmingham. Yeah. These are all good people, and they're backed up by 130,000 other ratepayers. So why is it that your Jefferson County Commission poo-pooed the idea? Seems to me that if they were carrying out their fiduciary responsibility to you, the citizens of Jefferson County, that they would have instructed their lawyers to file the appropriate paperwork in support of the interveners and demand that the creditors write off that 1.6, accept 1.5, and we can get on about living again. These are legitimate questions and concerns that you, as ratepayers and citizens of Jefferson County, ought to have. These are questions that you ought to be asking. Why are you not? So you come down there Tuesday and you ask them yourself, why don't you support the royal suit, the intervention with the bankruptcy court, demanding that the creditors write off the 1.6, that they replace that money within the community from which it was stolen? We've already demonstrated that the initial swaps and derivatives that they put in place were illegal. They violated the state constitution. They violated Securities and Exchange Commission rules. So they were illegal. So everything that happened after that was illegal. So let's roll it back. You big-time investors, New York bankers, whatever, write it off. We'll accept responsibility for electing the people who created this mess to the tune of $1.5 billion. And we'll get on about our lives. We'll start doing those things necessary to operate Jefferson County efficiently and correctly. We will require of all our citizens, regardless of skin color or ethnicity, that you participate fully in those things that are necessary to support and sustain the quality of life that we all desire here in Jefferson County. That's the only reason that we pay taxes, so as we can collectively provide those goods and services that we need as a community of people because we can't do them individually. So we allow ourselves to be taxed and levied to create a government to carry out the responsibility of picking up the garbage and keeping the roads, fixing the potholes and providing security and those officers who protect and serve. And those are things that we willingly pay for. We do not pay for corruption. We do not pay for this misgovernment, and we will not pay for the support of any ethnic group that deems itself superior to the rest of us. I want to take a moment of personal privilege. As you all know, I'm a devotee, a follower, or a believer, or fan of Dr. Carter G. Woodson, and his greatest material, to my thinking, best book that he did out of his collection of writings about the pathology of black people and slaves in this country. There was a paragraph that was brought to mind that I thought was relevant at this time. And this was written in 1933. But Dr. Woodson said at the time, history shows that it does not matter who is in power. Those who have not learned to do for themselves, and you know who you are, and have to depend solely on others, never obtain any more rights or privileges in the end than they did in the beginning. So to you and my listening audience, until you learn to understand and do for yourself, nothing is going to change. You can't expect the Jefferson County commissioners that you didn't directly elect to look out for you as a substitute for you looking out for yourself. They're looking out for them and theirs, not us and ours. So it is our responsibility, and it is your responsibility to show up down there Tuesday, tell them, hell no, we're not even going to consider any rate increases. You have had a plan on the table from Commissioner Bowman for several months now that offers us a way out. You have willfully ignored the suggestions and the plan. And what makes it even more ridiculous is that, we had to force the Birmingham News to print a copy of the plan. And when they did, their reporter came to me and showed me 2 emails he got from New York financial houses touting the Bowman plan, saying that we ran the numbers. This makes sense. Why won't J.P. Morgan accept this? Why won't the county accept this? Well, J.P. Morgan hasn't accepted because the county, as a majority, is not pushing it. It's only Bowman. He put it out there. He justified it. It made sense. They walked away from it. So now comes City Council President Rawl, State Representative Rogers, State Representative Moore, and 130,000 other sewer customers saying, here is a plan, and here's a demand of the court that the creditors write off $1.6 billion to put us back at the Bowman plan of $1.5 billion. Did the 3 Republican commissioners leap to their feet and say, this is the answer? Let's go with this. Let's work to help our people? No. They didn't open their mouth. with the exception of one who simply poured cold water on it. So it's your responsibility now to show up at the meeting on Tuesday and to tell them you've got a suit out there in the bankruptcy court that you ought to support. You've got a plan and a number out there from one of your own commissioners that you ought to support. So tell us why the hell you're not supporting it. And if you're not supporting it, if you're not working for the people, then resign. Go home and let's get somebody down here who truly wants to serve the people of Jefferson County. You're listening to Knowledge is Power. Tonight's Thursday night. I'm Richard Finley. I'm your host. We'll be back after the break. All right, welcome back. You're listening to Knowledge is Power. Tonight's Thursday night. I'm Richard Finley. I'm your host. I'm in with the great Curtis Bell.
We're holding up.
Yeah, we got the Temptations going in the background there.
Temptations? Yet to turn you.
It's a ball of confusion. All right, welcome back. We're about to wrap it up here. The number here for those of you who are interested in participating is 741-9288, 741-WATV. As I was saying, tonight's Thursday night, I'm Richard Finley. I'm your host. We've had an interesting evening of conversation. I hope that a lot of you turned out for the town hall meeting on Cooper Green Mercy Hospital. Know that it is critical that your voice be heard. We have no problem with an open public discussion of any publicly provided services. There are always better ways to do anything. There are always more efficient ways, more cost-effective ways. And this host and this community, I'm certain, are open to any reasonable discussions of how we make things better, how we are more efficient and effective in the use of public monies. But what we will not tolerate is this attempt to bomb rush the public. If those of you newly elected commissioners think that you have a better way, then hold it up for public scrutiny and discussion, and the people that you serve will give you the nod as to whether they agree with whatever proposals you put forward. But give them that respect as citizens, that you will come to them with your ideas for change and allow them to have input on whatever it is that you're deciding. Don't try to trick us. Don't try to overpower us. Don't ignore us in this process. And if you could learn to do that, then you would be a much better public servant, because that is what you were elected to do, was to serve and not to dictate. Curtis tells me we have someone who wants to participate. So, caller, welcome to Knowledge is Power.
Good evening. How you doing?
I'm good. How are you, sir?
All right. I've been listening to you, and with your line of reasoning, which is very clear to me, as far as providing understanding about what's going on, why do you think that the rest of these commissioners cannot see exactly clearly what you have described?
Well, you know the answer to that.
No, I don't. I'm seriously.
Well, we have a lot of the system that exists here in Alabama and in Jefferson County of white supremacy and white dominance. It's still in place. And most of the members of our community, those who are in elected positions, those who are in well-placed jobs and so forth, feel that they have to compromise, their logic, their reasoning, their morals, their sense of right and wrong, and they have to acquiesce to the white supremacists. And so they would prefer to be dumb and get paid than to be honest and to stand for what's right and to defend what's right. You're right. They clearly understand that what is being said on this program is right, but they are fearful of right because they fear that white people might get offended at black people talking with common sense. And they're right about that because, the white commissioners of Jefferson County won't speak to me. I've had some white people come to me and tell me, well, they're mad at you for what you said on the radio. So,
look,
yeah.
Maybe it goes back, to the effects of slavery.
Yes.
That is on us because, we gathered ourselves together and got some integrity and dignity, and we moved from Negro into blacks. Now then we move into African Americans. So that showed that our awareness was progressing. But in that term, Negro, N-E-G-R-O, the Nig is negative from the beginning. And the grow on the end. The white man, when he labeled us with that, he simply was saying negative growth, or people who would never grow. Nig, grow. And they have that type of mentality from what I'm listening to you, is that they're still in that frame of mind of the effects that has been planted upon us with fear, like you were saying, to the point that they would never grow from out of that Negro stage.
Mm-hmm.
Is the way I see it, man, and we need to come on up out of that because, see, everybody know that throughout history, all of the wars and all of the wrath of God came down on people because of one reason, the oppression of the poor. And if America keep oppressing the poor, you can see it all over the country. Everywhere there's oppression in countries, people are rising up against it. Mm-hmm. They're fighting for their rights. And the same thing is happening in this country, and it's going to escalate if people don't really understand. And not only will it raise a beast from the earth, it also will bring down the wrath of God from the heavens. I believe that the angels are already lined up and just waiting on the command to execute for the oppression of these poor people by the government, by the rich, by the little secret societies, and by all these people who are perpetrating themselves upon humanity. And you can see what's going on in America nowadays, how confused their minds are becoming, mm-hmm. how economically unstable they're becoming. And in place of realizing history, they're just getting bigger and worse in trying to fulfill their little greedy pockets to keep it from coming down upon themselves.
Well, you're right, and I don't think that they know how close retribution is.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
All right. Before we go to the next caller, based on what that caller had to say, I want to repeat that history shows that it does not matter who is in power. Those who have not learned to do for themselves and have to depend solely upon others never obtain any more rights or privileges or freedoms in the end than they did in the beginning. So the responsibility again is upon you to learn to do and to stand for yourself. Caller, welcome to Knowledge is Power.
How you doing?
I'm good, sir. How are you?
Well, I got up this morning, went on down around that Civil Rights Institute down there, been down there with signs all day long. We need to save Cripple Creek. They had a nice little turnout down there. I was outside, so I didn't see what all went on. But you can make sure, whenever Cripple Green name come up,
mm-hmm.
on me standing there, in line because it saved my wife's life. Now, America is not the only one that's over with. We in a phase of what you would call a solar cycle. The changing of what you would call like the elements of the earth. See, man talking about he made elements on the element chart, but he didn't. God made the elements. He started mixing them together to rob folks with them. And that's where that thing come out, talking about 109 elements and all that, mixing up all this stuff, and they have destroyed the delicate balance of God's earth by putting something on top of the earth that should have been placed in the earth and sealed up. Now, this solar cycle that we got here is coming from the back of the sun. The power of the sun have reversed. And there's going to be some more reversing before it's over with, because when we get there, we're going to see a bed of the ocean that lay dormant for so long that it's going to be that old hurricane trail that come down from West Africa where the chain, where you call the trail a chain, that's what I call, and shackles lay. Part of the ocean going to lay bare. And they're going to pour it, and we're going to see the horrors that took place and what was left there on that trail. It's going to be a powerful hand of God that bring a hurricane so powerful that they don't know what it is off the West Coast. Now, you know they say old fool can talk crazy, but let me tell you something. When you are in tune with the Spirit, and the Spirit is in tune with you, certain things is revealed. And you can bet your bottom dollar that when you see old Joe coming, laughing and grinning, he in the Spirit. And I stay in the Spirit.
All right.
All going to get us through this is we got to awaken to what a man is, and he is a protector and provider. The backbone has got to be a transplant put into these men's back. They're like a heart transplant to revive. And if we don't do it, it's time to stop the killing now. And we're asking God to save us. If we don't make a move now, the whole society of what we call the African dilemma of a journey of 400 years will be wasted. Mm-hmm. And God's not going to let all this suffering that we had did here on this land and in the diaspora and other places that's all over the world, we have been spread it because we got to build the last temple.
All right, Joe. We appreciate it. Joe the Prophet, y'all. You know, we are a spiritual people. Those of you who know our history, know our circumstances, know that our foreparents arrived here on this continent in chains, not knowing the language of their captors and being purposely, methodically, and intentionally tortured and conditioned to do the service that they would have us do. And throughout this process, when they establish codes and laws, and that's why you have to be careful with these laws, because they're all, and especially the 1901 Constitution, they're all designed to restrict and restrain the progress of the Negro and poor people in general within the state of Alabama. But when you think back on it and you realize that our foreparents had nothing but instinct and their spirit to sustain them. I mean, they were treated like animals. When you go back and you read some of Booker T. Washington's early writings when he was in the throes of bringing a people up out of slavery, some of the most fundamental things that had to be taught, because these people coming out of slavery were the descendants of a process that had started 400-500 years previous. So these are multiple generations of people who were born into these subhuman conditions. And through this spiritual effort, and that's the only thing that I can attribute it to. So that's why I listen to Joe the prophet and others who I know to be truly spiritual people who call, because there is something there that brought us up out of the lion's den. You know, you go back, young people, and read your history and read about the rapes and the lynchings and the beatings and the torture and the systematic process that was condoned by the government and put in place to destroy your mental capacity. But through all of that, I mean, through an organized, enshrined in law effort designed to contain black people, to destroy and break their spirit, to misdirect, miseducate, through all of that, we stand. So how is it now that you embrace this complacency within the county of Jefferson, knowing that your foreparents, void of any formal learning, trusted solely in their spirit and fought against the institution of slavery to allow us to stand at this point? There's been too much. You can't quit now. You can't rest now. You can't stop now. There's been too much invested in your deliverance for you in this day and time to give up, to sit down, to not fight back, to not stand as true men and women in this society. We've got a caller. Caller, you got...
Yeah, right quick. This is Ronald Jackson with Citizens for Better Schools, Sustainable Communities. I want all the, since you're talking about education, if you're in Birmingham City Schools and your child is in an overcrowded classroom, or you have a kid with special education needs and he's not receiving services, please call this number, 862-0538, 862-0538. We're fighting the Alabama State Department of Education, who's trying to take over Birmingham City Schools when they, in fact, have caused all the problems that exist in Birmingham City Schools. We're going down to Montgomery next month, not next month, next week, next Wednesday. And if those who want to go, we have a bus. We're going to pick you on a first-come, first-call basis. Call this number, 862-0538.
Okay, Ron, we ran out of time. I hope you got the number. Listeners, certainly every opportunity that you have to stand for education in this community, please take that opportunity and do so. Well, you know, we're out of time. We've certainly enjoyed our conversation with you this evening. We hope that you've been sufficiently motivated to go now and raise your voice and take your stand for right. It's as simple as that. Stand for right. Demand that your county commission support the intervener's suit in bankruptcy. Demand that your county commission allow Cooper Green Mercy Hospital to function and provide the services necessary to our indigent population in a professional non-political manner and way. We've got extremely qualified and dedicated individuals over there who know how best to do that. Demand that these newly elected commissioners stand down, stop interfering in the process, allow for a healthcare authority to be developed with healthcare professionals who sincerely want to provide quality care in charge. Demand that your county commission remove this burden of bankruptcy, that they not increase the sewer rates, that they come up with a fair and equitable system to provide quality service and a quality of life that is sustainable, meaningful, and enjoyable for all who would have it. You've been listening to Knowledge is Power. Tonight's Thursday night. I'm Richard Finley. I'm your host. We'll see you in 7.